What's up, everyone, and welcome into a special edition of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Today, we have the pleasure of talking with Analyst for TSN and the Halifax Thunderbirds, as well as co-host for the OTCB Podcast, Pat Gregoire. Pat, thanks for jumping on with us. How's it going?
Doing good, man. Excited. I can't believe we're already here at the playoffs. Like, part of me feels like this has been going on for a long time. The other part of me feels like it was just December and we were kicking off this season. But nonetheless, man, it's been a great year, and I think we're poised for an awesome postseason.
Yeah, I couldn't. We say it all the time on our show. The unified standings were one of the best things that the NL has ever done. I mean, every game is that important, and any game can kind of determine any kind of outcome. But that'll dive into the NL playoffs here. In one word, how would you describe the 2024-25 season in general?
Chaotic. Absolute chaos. And I think a big reason has been the unified standing. Sure, with the likes of Buffalo and Saskatchewan kind of sitting alone at the top for the majority of the year. You really, up until the very last night, this past Saturday, you didn't really have a clear picture of what could happen. The standings were as clear as mud. We had Philadelphia on Friday, still somehow, after having an 8-game losing skid, still to the last game of the season, still technically have a chance until a few things didn't go their way. You look at Ottawa. What a great start it was for them. And then out of nowhere, they kind of start falling out of favor. Rochester, Halifax, kind of staying in the middle, just, from top to bottom, the exception of Las Vegas and the craziness that was Toronto this year. Everyone was in the mix. And I think that's what the chaos, the madness that the unified standings was supposed to bring. It's brought the heat these 2 years in a row, but I think this year was even better.
So out of the 8 teams that made it, to you, which team would be the biggest shocker that you had based on the preseason expectations? And then which team or teams that missed the dance are you most shocked about?
I think no doubt the biggest, and for a lot of folks, whether it was Vegas with their odds preseason, and I mean Las Vegas, the sports books, or power rankings, it's got to be the Roughnecks. I mean, this is a team that a lot of people at the start of the year had to finish in dead last, missed the playoffs. Hand up, me too. Yeah, I thought they were going to really struggle without Christian Del Bianco in between the pipes. But we should have known better. With the offense that they put forward, they were a team to be reckoned with. And then they shore things up, bringing in Nick Rose. They have been a really, really big surprise. Have they been very consistent? Could they probably be a more consistent group to be a true championship threat? I think so. But nonetheless, that was a shocker for me. We shouldn't be surprised, though, that Curtis Dixon, Dane Dobbie still have a lot of gas left in the tank. You put in Jesse King, who I think is one of the most underrated superstars in the game, and Tanner Cook, who is personally one of my favorite guys to watch in the league. So that would be the biggest shocker from a standpoint who made it in. Who didn't make it in, Toronto's the easy answer, but I mean, they had superstar after superstar on the IR. You start the season 0-5. You still felt like, man, this is a team that can figure it out. And they just never did figure it out. And even after they dump off Nick Rose at the deadline, Mitch DeSnew, Chris Corbeil, you heard rumblings of Brad Cree and potentially Tom Schreiber. You still felt like, man, this team still has it. And then it really wasn't until that loss to Las Vegas where you're like, okay, this thing ain't turning around. So that would be the easy answer when you look at that. But I think a lot of factors with especially injuries kind of help them not be there. But I think it's Albany. Did I think Albany was going to run it back to the finals? No. But did I think that they were a group that really proved that it didn't matter how young they were, led by Doug Jamieson in between the pipes, a really athletic defense, and we saw what that offense was able to do to make it all the way to the final. I really thought they would have a little bit of a step back. You had Dyson Williams in the fold. I thought this would be a top 4, top 5 team. I thought they could be hosting a first round playoff game. But, I think when you look at some of the defensive issues that they had, most notably with some injuries, Doug Jamieson really not being himself, the first, I guess not even the first half, because he was pretty good to start that quarter of the season. There was a little bit of a mid-season lull that he had, and he wasn't able to really shore up a lot of the inefficiencies that they had when some of those big older vets came out. So they would probably be the biggest shocker. I think they're going to be fine next year. I think they can maybe add a few veteran pieces on the back end. I think that's a team that probably can get back into the playoffs next year, but I really didn't think they were going to have the drop off that they had this year.
So besides Calgary and Colorado, if you're the NLL, I think the 4 teams that you'd most want to host a playoff game are the 4 that you ended up getting in Buffalo, Saskatchewan, Halifax, and Vancouver. So on top of the great product that's going to be played on the field this weekend, how important is it for the growth of the league to have those 4 big name teams that draw such big time fans to the arenas host a playoff game in the opening round?
Well, like Banditland, like when you go to those games, like that sells itself. It literally is a selling tool for the National Lacrosse League when they're looking for new ownership groups. They bring prospective ownership groups, host them at the games because you look at it, this is what you could get. This is the peak. This is the top of what you can have in the NLL. And for a guy that's in TV, the fans, the passion, when you have a full, at least lower bowl, when it's a full stadium for Buffalo, that just sells itself. That adds such a great element to our stories. And when you have, obviously, Buffalo, no doubt, the best fan base, the most raucous atmosphere, the most historic franchise, or one of the most historic franchises, Saskatchewan, who, let's be honest, has dropped off as of late, but I think with the recent success, we're starting to see butts end up in the seats there. Halifax, man, like I'm just so excited to see what that brings in a smaller niche market in the east coast of Canada, who've been doing really well in terms of ticket sales, multiple sellouts. And then Vancouver, they're opening up, they opened up the upper bowl now. They're selling upper bowl seats in an NHL arena. There's a lot of positive strides. They're in great markets. I don't think this could set up even better. Being a little bit biased, north of the border, having, 3 Canadian teams certainly helps the TSN deal when it comes to that. So I'm super excited for it. I think fans should be excited for it. And let's be honest, BK, like when you turn on a game and you see an empty building, like right, it kind of turns you off, right? If you've never seen it before, you turn on a Bandits game and you see everyone wearing black, orange, and white, or you turn on a Halifax game and you're like, oh, wow, Halifax, Nova Scotia. And you look and this building is, filled to the rafters. You're going to stop and watch and say, okay, what's going on here? If the people aren't flocking to the arena itself, why would a casual fan do it? So I think those 4 markets are going to show up big time this week, and I think it's the perfect recipe for a great way to start the playoffs.
So for those that don't know, the playoffs are going to be similar to last year, where there will be no reseeding, which means the highest seeds not going to end up playing the lower seeds next round. So 1 and 8 and 4 and 5 are on one side to the finals, and then you got 2 and 7 and 3 and 6 on the other side. So we'll start with the right side of the bracket, Saskatchewan and Georgia, 2 vastly different teams in my opinion. The Rush look like a complete team. They do have spells where they struggle to put the ball in the back of the net, but overall they're a juggernaut. And then Georgia, I've said it multiple times, they have to be the most frustrating team in the entire league right now, hands down. And to you, what stands out the most in this one and done battle that we got coming on Saturday?
The thing is with Georgia, and I'm in the same camp as you guys, I've listened to you say, like, you just can't get a proper read on it. They're frustrating. They're inconsistent. The thing is, if they play their perfect game, I think they're a team that can knock off anyone. You said it yourself, like Buffalo, that would be a scary first round matchup. I think Saskatchewan's not ultimately pleased for it, but in a 2 or 3 game set, I think Georgia, their holes can definitely be exposed. But this is a 1 game, a 1 knockoff. And the fact that Saskatchewan has showed this year, sure, they can be explosive at some points. If that offense gets a little caught stagnant, and if Brett Dobson starts making those saves from the outside and starts feeling confident, that could get very scary. So I think the team that I trust more, no doubt, is Saskatchewan. When you look at the back end, Frank Giuliano having a very solid season. The defense is just so athletic, so mean. They can push the ball in transition. And then sure, yeah, they don't have one guy that can carry the offense. They didn't have one guy in the top 20 of scoring. I kind of also think that's a great thing because they have like 4 or 5 guys with 60 points. You can't just game plan, shut down 1 or 2 guys. Everyone on that offense can really make you hurt. So I think like Georgia has to play the quote unquote perfect game. But we've seen it. They can do that at points. And I think we're going to be able to tell early on in this game which Georgia team has showed up out in the prairies.
Yeah, and even if you want to look, because I was trying to look towards the future here to break down the show on Friday, and yeah, 4 players in Saskatchewan over 70 points, but Robert Church also missed those 2 games. He could have easily been in the top 20-15 if he played in those 2 games. But the goalie battle, to me, it's going to be very interesting. Frankie has struggled in the playoffs, but looks like a completely different animal this year. I mean, I personally think he's the likely favorite to win goaltender of the year. And then the other side, you have Brett Dobson. Well, his numbers might not be there this year and might not have taken that next step that a lot of people were expecting. To me, he's in those biggest moments, he steps up big time. So am I crazy to think that whichever team here scores 10 is pretty much going to win it, because their first matchup was 8-7. So, I mean, we could be in store for a repeat.
I think so. And we've seen a lot of time in these high stake games that maybe scoring comes at a little bit of a premium. I do think that transition is going to come into play big time here, because I do like the way that both of their defenses are built. They're supremely athletic. They like to get up in your face. And sure, there's the Lyle Thompson effect. He can take over a game, or like you said, Robert Church, like when his stick is hot, there's not too many more deadly shooters. You could even put Austin Shanks in that category as well. But I think this is going to really come down to, which team can maybe capitalize on the power play, or that can score 1 or 2 big transition goals, because I think you said it. Dobson in clutch situations, he's got ice water in his veins. He'll be the first to tell you that he has not been himself this year. It's not been his best season, but he always seems to save his best for these big moments. And I agree, Frank Giuliano in the years past, he's kind of faded off to the end. He hasn't been able to carry that play, but he's got, let's not forget, he also had a full month off. When he missed those 2 games, the schedule could not have worked out better in his favor. And I think having that almost month off has allowed him to carry on and have steam. But from all the indications, talking people around that group, they say he just has a different mindset. He wants to win. He is absolutely laser focused and come into a little bit of better shape this year as well. So I think the old narrative of Frankie's gonna, lose steam, I don't think it's happening, and I don't think it's happening in round 1. If we see it, it's maybe going to happen when they have a back-to-back in the second or third round, in the final, whatever it may be. But I don't see, I really don't see that happening in round 1 against Georgia. I think you're spot on. If you are not a fan of defensive battles, maybe this one might not be the one for you.
Yeah, there's plenty of other games. Well, not plenty of other games. There's another game that you could be watching at that same time.
Yeah.
The other matchup on that side, and I've kind of already admitted it, but I'll admit this, I was dead wrong on both Halifax and Calgary this year. I mean, I miss all the time, but this was peak miss. So, 2 of the top 4 offenses are going head-to-head against one another. Didn't see that coming. But both, in my opinion, are built very similarly in size out the front gate. I think they're both possibly one of the biggest offenses, both of them, in the entire league. So are we in store for another 18-17 showdown that we kind of saw in their first matchup to kick off the season?
I think the 2 coaches probably would say absolutely. I hope not, because that was a barn burner. But it feels like these 2 teams are just at completely different points of where they were at that point. Halifax, I still don't think they're overly confident in their goaltending situation. Drew Hutchison's been great down the stretch, but the fact that they've had to go to him this late in the season certainly is causes for concern. But from a defensive standpoint, they are night and day. They're a completely different group from what we saw at the first 3-4 games. They have figured it out. Andrew Suter, the defensive coordinator, Roger Chrysler have done a really nice job adjusting things, still using their athleticism to get out on hands, take away time and space, push transition, but they've been very responsibly on the backside of, having their slides on point, doing a really nice job, not getting too caught out. And to be quite honest, they always talk about, we're worried about playing ourselves and playing the way that we want to play. They also do a really good job of in-game adjustments, seeing what other teams are doing. And it's not huge adjustments. They're not popping in from, man-on-man to a zone or a box and one or anything crazy like that. Just little subtle adjustments that they have done. And I think they're going to have their hands full, because I do agree, Calgary is a extremely potent offense. But when you look at what Halifax can do and what they can bring, I think You know, but they finished second in goals per game. Their power play definitely slipped off the last couple of games, but you know, they were sitting around number 1, number 2 for the majority of this season. So these are two offenses that that can go for a long time where it's a dry spell and then a blink of the hat, boom, 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 3, 4. Like these are run starting offenses. And I think both teams are ready to play any style that it's going to be a run and gun, maybe a defensive battle. I think they're both able to be built to play either type of game, whether it's going to be a high scoring game or low scoring game. But I think just even with the addition of Nick Rose, I don't see Calgary letting up 17 goals in this one.
So who would be your difference maker in this game that needs to come on strong for their team to win? And if you want, you can pick one from each team.
I'm going to take one from each team, and I'm going to take 2 power forwards, 2 vintage players that you just don't see anymore. I think these are the 2 guys that are just so similar, and it's Dawson Thied for Halifax and Tanner Cook for Calgary. 2 Whitby guys, 2 guys that just play the game the right way. You always hear it. They play a heavy game, but they are so unbelievably talented. Look at what Dawson Thied was able to do against Toronto. 10 points, a career night. We've seen Tanner Cook be able to take over. Tanner Cook made Team Canada. Like that is like, look at all the other lefties that he beat out for that position. Mitch Jones, Dane Doby. Like they went out and they saw this guy. They said, okay, not only is he like uber talented, but he's going to be able to play a role that we know he can play. And that's what he does on that Calgary team. He sets hard seals. He battles. He gets to the middle of the floor. But when he gets his chances too, he can take over a game because he is such an impossible nightmare when it comes to a one-on-one matchup. Who do you can't really just go up with bulk and size because there's not many defenders that can stay with him. And also the fact is he's pretty athletic as well too. So he can match feet. He's very elusive, and the same thing can go for Dawson Thied, man. The guy is just built like a Coke machine, but he's got silky smooth hands. He's got a great shot. Both these guys, you just don't see players quite like these guys anymore. They're those vintage power forwards. And I think if you ask any GM across the league, they'd take one of these guys. We know Dixon's going to go off for his. We know Randy Stott's going to go off for his. But if one of these guys don't have a big night for their team, they're probably not coming out with a win, and they're ending their season a little earlier than expected.
Yeah, we had Mackie on a couple weeks ago to preview the Halifax game, and I think my love for Dawson Thied.
He's the best, man. I don't blame him. I don't blame him, man. How could you not? He's a big burly guy. You know, he looks like he's not moving fast out there, but he'll truck through you. It's again, I've said it so every time. Like, and I do a lot of Halifax games, but I just always catch myself like just with a smile on my face and be like, man, they don't make guys like this anymore.
Yeah, the guy that size should not move that way. But
No.
I have to ask, because a lot of people have differing opinions on the opening round. Are you in favor of the one and done type of format, or would you like to see them expand to the 2 rounds, or the best 2 out of 3 like the rest of the rounds do?
You know what? I'm so torn here from the TV side of me. I love the one game because it's just like, you know, anything can happen. It's March Madness personified. You know, you could show up in one poor game and you're done. Your season's over. Like I've said multiple times, like if the Buffalo Bandits, and maybe I might be getting ahead of myself here, but like, if you're going to knock off the Buffalo Bandits, your best chance is to do it in round 1, because I just don't see how you can beat a team like Buffalo 2 of 3. Sure, there are ways to do it, but I just like the chances on a one and done. I really do. And in that, saying that there is, okay, well then maybe this is not the best way to figure out who the best team is. You could have a bad night. There could be injuries at play. That's what I don't like about the true one and done. From an entertainer standpoint, it's great, but from really figuring out what's the best and who's the best, I think best 2 out of 3 all the way through. I think we got to expand the season before we start expanding the playoffs. Christian Del Bianco talked about it on his podcast, The Morning Shoot Around, as well, about how, you know, if you were to expand the finals to a 5 and have 3 and 3 in the first round, like now all of a sudden, like half your playoffs is the same length of, or sorry, the full playoffs is half your season. So I think we got to get to a point where we're expanding the regular season before we start expanding the playoffs. But it's tough. It is definitely a double-edged sword, because from an entertainment standpoint, it's great. But I could see why fans would be like, I hate this. This is stressful. My team could go home now, and if you don't bring it, your season's done.
Yeah, I didn't think about it that aspect of extending the season before the playoffs. I was just thinking, like, because I'm with you. I love the one and done aspect because it's such entertaining TV. But I also love that, hey, it could go to a game 3, and then you get 2 extra games instead of just the 1. So
exactly,
like you said, it's a double-edged sword. But we'll flip to the other side of the bracket. In the 4-5 matchup, we have 2 of the hottest teams in the league right now going into the playoffs. Vancouver's riding a 6-game winning streak. Rochester's 9-4 in their last 13 and just got off a 6-game winning streak. So last year's 4-5 matchup, it was Buffalo versus Georgia, and we saw how electric that was. Besides the obvious Rochester's offense versus Christian Del Bianco, what is another storyline in this one we should be watching for?
So there's 2, and it kind of revolves around 2 individual players. Keegan Ball, first playoff game. It's crazy that this guy has gone this long in his NLL career and he hasn't found himself in a postseason, because he seems like he is a playoff type of guy. He, in fourth quarters, he takes over games. He is a cold-blooded killer. You look at, like, we've shown shots of Keegan Ball on the bench, and you couldn't take away the score bug. You couldn't tell if his team was up 100 or down 100, because he is just so stoic. But the guy just wants to win so much. So I think Keegan Ball, first playoff game, what is he able to do? Because let's be honest, he is that heartbeat of that offense. I know a lot of takes about Christian Del Bianco changing that team, the MVP, but I really think, Keegan Ball is the tone setter for that team from an offensive standpoint, and no doubt what Del Bianco's been able to do with the group is remarkable as well. From the other side, I think when you look at Rochester, can Connor Fields match what Keegan Ball is doing? And I know we always like to say, like, player A versus player B, and it's usually a defender against an offensive player, maybe a transition player against a offensive player. But these 2 guys going toe to toe, and they are just such electric players. They're players that can take over a game individually. Sometimes the ball might die on their stick a little bit too much, or they're taking too many shots, but a lot of the times it's hitting the back of the net. I think those 2 guys going toe to toe, ripping outside shots, taking over the game's going to be super, super exciting to see. But you're right. We're bearing the lead. This is the high powered offense against Del Bianco, like the 3-headed monster. What Rochester's been able to do offensively this year, Lance Berry just completely elevating his game. Ryan Smith, he's one of my favorite players to watch, like just a goal scorer's goal scorer. And then Fields, who I think he's going to be on top of a lot of people's MVP ballots this year for what he's been able to do for this team.
Yeah, and you even got McConvey, who's just hiding in the shadows. It's just ridiculous how deep their offense is.
I know.
But this one might be weird for you, but we were very, both Phil and I were very high on Rochester going into this season. We kind of faded a bit when they had that stretch, and then they went hot, and we're like, yeah, we knew this the whole time. But actually, we had Vancouver being the first team out in 9th place this season, and that kind of got blown out of the wind when Del Bianco got added. But this is kind of a hypothetical, but if the Warriors win this game, is it a bigger story for Vancouver accelerating that big rebuild that they did when Malowski came in? Or is it more of a storyline of, the Nighthawks coming in, falling short in a round 1 exit, failing to meet expectations?
This is a great question, because I like you guys, I was very high on Rochester this year, and I felt like a bit of a dummy when they took their slide. Now that they are arguably one of the hottest teams in the NLL, we're seeing the vision. Rylan Hartley comes back, and Hartley's been fantastic. He is that heartbeat of that team. Like, he is the tone setter when he's on. When he's buzzing around, making those ridiculous acrobatic saves, getting the ball up in transition, the team just plays different. And that's nothing to say, the goaltending that they were receiving before from Hutchcraft. Because you look at the numbers, he was playing great.
It was solid, yeah.
It's just the team feels different. And I think when you talk to Dan Carey, the general manager, or Mike Hazen, like, They had slow expectations for the group. Take a step. They took their steps, made the playoffs, and first round exit to Buffalo and Toronto. Well, that it is what it is. We're up against a juggernaut. This was the year where they okay, now we get a home playoff game, and now we take a step forward and win a series. They don't get the home playoff game, but now here's an opportunity for them to get into the next round. I think it would be very disappointing for them to get sent home, especially that with that run that they had leading into the playoffs. But I'm going to go against everything I just said, and it's Vancouver being ahead of schedule. It is 1,000%. I mean, Kurt Milowski came in day one and said, listen, like, this is not going to be an overnight success. There's going to be pain. We're going to learn to play the right way, and we're going to build a Vancouver brand that everyone is proud, not to just put on that crest, but people coming to the arena downtown and being a part of it and being proud to be a Warriors fan. I think they started to build that last year. They had that push, almost got in. I still think, even if Aiden Walsh is still playing here, I think if they lose or they win around, everyone's elated. If they lose, it's like, hey, you know what? That's fine. We're okay. We're ahead of schedule. Here we are. I think that the expectations now have changed. Once you put a guy like Del Bianco in between the pipes, like now all of a sudden he's the top of people's power rankings. People are picking Del Bianco to be an MVP or goaltender of the year. People are saying this is the team to knock off Buffalo. They're the dark horse to win it all. So even though the expectations have changed from what we saw at the start of the year with this group, if you told me, hey, they were going to win a first round playoff game and potentially go on a run, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised, but I'd be like, wow, that's a huge story and a big success for the National Lacrosse League.
Yeah, I always like to make the joke, even though I know it's not Christian Del Bianco, but you just had to add a goalie and lose a forward to fix the offense. It's weird like that.
It is. It's perfect formula.
Yeah, that also helps Kevin Keegan Ball go absolutely crazy. But the Bandits versus Seals, final matchup to review, and it's actually the first game that's going to be taking place this weekend. But I think a lot of people saw this matchup as a possible finals option before the season even began. And, the team split the season series earlier. Goal differential was 0. And maybe it's just the Buffalo resident in me because I've been hurt so many times, but it feels like these two teams are a lot closer than a 1-8 type of seeding. I mean, game one was off a back-to-back with Toronto, and we already know how bad-blooded that is. And then the second one, you had Courier, who was out due to the birth of his child. So, I mean, I've heard it mentioned multiple times on your show, and you were kind of already hinting at this, but the best time to knock off the Bandits is round one in a one-and-done. So the question is, are the Seals the team that can get it done?
I think they are 1A, 1B. I think like if you looked at maybe like a Vancouver, I think they're a team that could have possibly done it just due to how hot they were. But when you look at the way the Seals have been able to play the Bandits, they're one of the only teams that have been able to at least slow down that offense. And we've seen it 2 games in a row where they've battled right to the very end. It all comes down to Chris O'Reilly, to be quite frank, because this team, when he's on, they are a top 3-4 team. There's no doubt in my mind. He hasn't been like that for majority of the season. He has really struggled. I think everyone expected him, including myself, to take a step forward. We saw what he was able to do with the Victoria Shamrocks in the summer series, taking his team all the way to the Mann Cup. I don't even think that he's not taking a step forward. He's taken a step back in my books. But in these big games where they've needed big wins, he's come up and played big. And he is well beyond his years when it comes to, his age and the way that he plays in these big moments. You've got a guy like Westberg who, if you need a big goal, the guy's probably going to come up big. Ryan Benesh dialed back the clock last week. And Courier, this guy should be an MVP candidate. For whatever reason, he's not a candidate for the MVP, which blows my mind. I was going to have him on my ballot just for everything that he does. This is going to be a challenging game for Buffalo, just with the pedigree, the poise, the scars that Buffalo has been before. I think it's a close game. I think it's a sweat, very reminiscent of what we saw in that Georgia game last year. But I feel like Buffalo is just too battle tested at this point to not come out in a one and done. As long as all the bumps and nicks on the back end are okay and they're healthy enough, I think Buffalo gets it done, but not without a scare from this very good San Diego team.
Yeah, I got a lot of crap earlier in the season for picking I had San Diego number 1 in my seeding, and everybody, if it was 2016 with Benesh and McIntosh, and then they put up like that ungodly first game, and I felt, pretty good, and then it dwindled down. But how important is it for both of these teams, and you kind of already hinted at it with Larry, that they get out to hot starts, because we've seen it in the past from both these goaltenders, one a lot more than the other, that once they settle in, it's tough to beat both of them. So getting out to a hot start, how important is that?
I think for the Seals, it's paramount. You've been inside that building many times before in playoff games. It's just different. And Buffalo gets on a run. If they score 2 goals, it feels like 5. If they score 5 goals, it feels like 10. Like when they get on their runs, it is tough to really, and then we always say it, lacrosse is a game of runs, but it's a different game when you're inside Bandit land. And like you said, if Buffalo settles in, they start soaking shots from the outside, Matt Vince starts gobbling up big saves, and the defense really lulls you into the way that they want to play. And it looks like, Courier and Benesh are winding out from the outside, and that looks like a good shot, but that's exactly the shot that the Bandits want to give up. Then you start chasing the game, and then it is really difficult. Sure, Buffalo, no doubt, like, of course, starting on time would do a lot, but I feel a lot more comfortable if coming in the fourth quarter, Bandits are down 2 or 3 goals or even 4 goals. Like, I still think they can mount that at home, whereas if the Seals get down 4 goals in the fourth quarter, it's just going to be real tough to overcome. I really do. But I think it's easier said than done starting on time. I think every team wants to. But I think it's just so much more important, not just for the Seals' psyche, but you said it, Chris O'Reilly. Like, I think we'll be able to tell what type of game we're getting from O'Rig within the first 5 to 10 minutes.
So going into the playoffs, I think it's safe to say that the Bandits are the favorites due to them being the 2-time defending champions and the number 1 seed, but they might not be in the best position to win it all. I mean, Cam Wires and Kyle Métis both went down on Saturday and did not return. You had Nick Weiss go down in the first, and who knows what type of injury that was. And, when you're playing, you're running on a lot of adrenaline. But, added to that, their side of the bracket is electric. It's dangerous over there. So in your eyes, considering all the factors, and because you're the man behind Coolbet, would you make the odds Buffalo versus the Field, or is there going to be another team mixed in there with Buffalo to kind of even it out and even out those betting lines? Like, for example, Buffalo and Saskatchewan versus the Field, or is Buffalo standing alone enough to sway enough people?
I can tell you, man, like the odds that we've seen all season long, like for example, at Coolbet, Buffalo's minus 182 just to make the NLL Cup Finals, which I think is absolutely crazy, but why not? Why wouldn't they get back with all the success that they've had getting back to that point? So I would probably say, I think you're probably closer, although like if you put a team like Saskatchewan there on the other side of the bracket, I think you probably get it closer, or maybe you stack it 2 teams from the other side and maybe you get odds of Bandits and Warriors, because outside of the Bandits, I think when you ask people, okay, who do you think's going all the way? It seems like it's Buffalo and Vancouver, and it's a shame that we don't get reseeding, although it does make a lot of things more fun, because I think a lot of people, if they were filling out their bracket right now, or if the Warriors were on the other side, I think we would get a lot of Bandits versus Warriors finals.
So with the 4 matchups and time slots now set, which one are you most excited to watch this weekend?
Well, I'm going to be biased because I'm there, and I've spent a lot of time down in Halifax, but I'm so excited to see the Nest in a playoff game. Like it's been a long time coming for this group. They've come so close before and they've faltered down the stretch. Whereas this year they reversed Halifax. I can't remember who I heard say that, coined the phrase, but they did. They started out slow. They figured things out. And since that 0-3 start, they have not lost back-to-back games. They have done a really good job having that counter punch. So I think they're built for the playoffs this year, but just the sheer building and the electricity that is going to be there is going to be awesome. But from a game standpoint, we talked about already, so I don't want to go into too much length, but like Calgary's a team that should scare Thunderbirds fans, the Thunderbirds have only beaten Calgary once since moving to the East Coast. The Roughnecks, whether it's Del Bianco or whoever in between the pipes or whoever's playing for this team, they have just given them all sorts of fits. And I don't know what it is. For whatever reason, just the Roughnecks have had their number. I think it's 5 straight losses. So they're going to have to overcome some of those demons as well. But from just a pure electricity standpoint, that's going to be good. But I think all 4 matchups are going to be awesome.
Yeah, we were talking again, Mackie. There's just something a bit different. Like being able to sell out 19,000 fans is fantastic in the environment there, but selling out the Nest like that, where people are right on top of you and it's a smaller building, but you still pack the house, it can be a different feel with people right on top of you.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. It's got the low ceiling. It's like kind of the old junior building, and they're right on top of you. You know, they got the big fireworks that go off. Heave Away starts playing. Like it's again, Banditland, when you get that horn going and everyone's going crazy and you got Swenny on the mic, like those runs really start to feel suffocating. We're starting now to feel that in Halifax when they go on the runs, and their offense is built to go on runs as well. It's also built sometimes to kind of lull to sleep, and you won't see the offense come to life sometimes. But when they get on the runs, you get Heave Away going, everyone's up clapping, and they're 1,000 Keiths deep. Like, it's an unbelievable atmosphere, and I expect that to be on a completely different level come Saturday on the East Coast.
So I'm not going to ask you to pick the whole playoffs. I'm not even going to ask you to pick a winner.
Good.
But what I am going to ask you to do is, what is your dream finals matchup that you hope to play out? It might not even be what you think might pan out, but exactly what is your dream scenario for the finals?
Okay, I'm going to give you 2 because I think it's too difficult. So from what me personally, Pat Gregoire, just the lacrosse fan, I want to see Buffalo, Halifax. I want to see those 2 teams go toe-to-toe. There's a lot of history from when Halifax was in Rochester. You have the 2 fan bases that both buildings will be absolutely filled. I think it just from an entertainment standpoint, what we saw a couple weeks ago, Buffalo and Halifax going toe-to-toe, I thought that was just such an entertaining game. I really think that would be a great final. From a storyline, from me being the broadcaster, the storyteller, just give me the chaos.
I know where you're going. Yep.
Yes. Roughnecks, Warriors. The story will write itself. That would be so much fun to see Christian Del Bianco go up against his old team with all the drama. Oh, give it to me. Absolutely give it to me. That'd be amazing. The other one would also be, wouldn't it be funny to see Nick Rose finally get over the hump but then he has to face his former demons in Buffalo? That would probably be another one. But those 2 first ones by far, I think, would be the best.
That might be a 3-hour morning shoot-around podcast.
Oh my God. They should make it pay-per-view if that's the case. They talk about trying to drive revenue other ways. Make that episode pay-per-view, and I think we've solved things right there.
Oh yeah. But the final 2 here, to me, I mean, it's going to be some of the closest award races, and Adam Levy already posted all the nominees out there. I believe it was on Monday he did that, but I feel you could pick a good number of players to win any of them, and you'd have a very strong case. But I'm not going to ask you to pick a winner here, but a player that you believe in one of the bigger awards that could be a sleeper, named as a finalist in a week or 2 here, that might other people might think is like, why the heck is he in there? And then you kind of look at the numbers and look at exactly what he did on paper, and it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So I'll go with a couple here. I think the one is when you look at the rookie of the year. I think there's a lot of hype obvious around the 2 first draft picks and Brennan O'Neill and Dyson Williams. But from what we saw from some of those other rookies over the last couple of years, like the numbers really weren't, I don't want to say underwhelming, but they maybe weren't as big as what we've seen from other rookies. And Adam Poitras, like, I think he is such an underrated superstar, going to be a superstar in this league. He does so much. But Will Johansson, not enough people are talking about what this guy is doing. When you look at the numbers with the loose balls, you look at the fact that this guy just never turns the ball over. And it's not, I get it. He's a defender. He's not going to have the turnover numbers that a forward were, but he's just so responsible. He's playing big minutes. He's on the penalty kill. He's on the draw team. He's likely going up against one of the top two forwards. Like when you look at from the defenders in rookies, like he's having one of the best defensive rookie seasons that we've seen in a very long time. So I think he absolutely has to be a dark horse candidate for that position there. Again, like my pick for this was going to be Courier for MVP, but for looking at the ballot, he's not there, which I think absolutely blows my mind. So I'm going to take a different perspective. I'll go with the Seals. Danny Logan. I saw him for the first time in person about a month ago when San Diego came to town to take on Halifax, and I'm blown away. Like I knew how good he was, but when you see him up close and personal, this guy's an absolute menace. He's up in your face. He's disrupting, knocking down passes, pushing the ball in transition. Like he is an absolute menace out there. And I think Matt Hossack's probably going to run away. Well, I shouldn't say run away, but he's probably going to get a ton of votes. I think Danny Logan is a dark horse that we need to start paying attention to, because we talk about Ryan Tarafanko and what a great, American defender and transition player he is. I don't think when we talk about those field defensive middies that turn into box defenders and transition players, we're not talking about Logan nearly enough. But I agree with you, PK. Like overall, this is going to be one of the tightest races that we've seen in the awards. I honestly, I'm having such a difficult time building my ballot, because every other day when I look at something or I dive into my notes, I'm like, well, I can make an argument for this guy for MVP. I can make an argument for transition player of the year. And then transition player of the year is a topic for another day, because okay, what about guys that play a little more offense, but maybe not quite as defense? Again, topic for another day. But I think with the abundance of talent and the fact that we're struggling to pick some of these awards, whereas in years past, it was like, well, this guy, maybe some debate over here, but the awards are pretty much set. Like, I hope these voters are taking their time with their awards here, because there are a lot of great players that really elevated their game this year. And I know I'm going to really have a hard decision when it comes down to picking my finalists for each of these awards.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with transition player of the year. We did a mid-season, and I didn't have Ian McKay there, and everybody was freaking out. And all the Bandits fans were like, I don't view him as a transition player, even though he's got a T next to his name.
I know, it's so tough though, man. Like, because like Brian Cole, same thing. Like, but he's basically playing offense, but he does leak back in reverse transition. And I think we have to revamp the awards or revamp the positions where it's like, every night you're either dressed as a forward and you're dressed a defender, and we give out an award. Maybe it's like top defensive or top offensive player or the top two-way player. I don't know what we got to do. I don't make the big bucks for a reason. I'm not the big brain here, but I just feel like it's a disservice not to celebrate the season that Ian McKay is having, because it's unbelievable what this guy is actually doing right now. But I think that he's going to lose out on a lot of votes, and for fair reason, because how do you compare a guy that's mostly playing offense to a guy like Ryan Tarafanko, who's playing zero offense, but still putting up 30, close to 40 points? It's so difficult. I'm glad I don't make these decisions, but I think a decision has to be made so we can still celebrate the likes of the Brian Coles and the Ian McKays, because those guys don't grow on trees.
It's their own fault for being too good on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
But final question, and this one's always unrelated to the guest and the sport. So if you could come up with one new law, what would it be and why?
All right. Well, I know you said unrelated to lacrosse and sports, but I'll be honest. I'm a sports nerd. Everything that I do in life somehow revolves back to sports. It always does. So my thing, and I don't know if it's a law or if it'd be a regulation. So what I would say is we'll spin it as a law. I think the day after the Super Bowl has to be a holiday. So it is illegal to work on the day after a Super Bowl. I think it's one of the most fun days of the year. You get together with friends, you eat a ton of food, maybe you have a couple extra drinks. Last thing you want to do is go to work. No one's productive the morning after the Super Bowl anyways, because if you're in the office or on the construction site, wherever you are, you're probably talking about the game before or the halftime show. So nothing's getting done anyway. So my law would be it is illegal to work the day after the Super Bowl.
I love it. I love it. I like yours better than the one I came up with. Mine was illegal to leave your shopping carts willy-nilly in the parking lot.
Oh,
the cart corral or back to the store. But I like, getting paid to not work. So I'll lean your side better.
I actually like that a lot. That is a major pet peeve of mine. Oh man, that is a good one. Like I would be okay. I would sign off at 2 years prison if you don't bring your shopping cart back.
Yeah, my wife always gets mad at me because whenever I see a shopping cart in a parking spot, when I'm returning mine, I'll just grab that. And she goes, "You're not getting paid." I'm like, "Yeah, but I can't not bring it back."
I'm the same, man. I'm the same.
But Pat, thank you for joining us on the Buffalo Sports Collective. Do you want to let everyone know, I mean, they already should be following you, but where they can find you, the podcast, and anything else you want to plug for the listeners?
Yeah, no, if you are on X or Twitter, follow me at @pgreggy, Instagram @pgreggy22. If you're north of the border, you can see me on the TSN Game of the Week. We will be having news of what games you can see in Canada. If you're south of the border, turn on ESPN Plus. You'll be able to find those games there as well. And then, of course, the Off the Crossbar podcast, myself, Teddy Jenner. Not every week. We've been slipping up a little bit this year just due to our travel, but mostly every week we'll have a pod dropping. This week, Buffalo fans, I'll tease it for you, or I won't tease it. I'll just break the news. Buffalo fans will want to tune in. We've got Dane Smith coming on the program this week, so will be a lot of fun talking to him. He's always a blast. So you can, we're on Apple, a podcast, Spotify as well. I think still SoundCloud, but yeah, you can find us there as well.
All right. Thanks again for joining us on the BSC. Hope to talk to you down the road and continued success with both OTCB and broadcasting.
Well, I appreciate it. You guys keep up the great work. You are officially a part of my weekly preparation. I always love listening to podcasts. The addition of the weekly guests has been a lot of fun. So keep doing a great job. I hope to see you guys in Banditland at some point during the playoffs, because that probably means that we've got a deep playoff run coming.
We'll be back Thursday for our normal episode to our preview Bandits versus Seals. We'll talk to you all then.